G'day and welcome to the Hunters Campfire podcast. My name's Mark and along with good mate Ian, we're here to help with all things hunting. If you're looking to start but don't know where to begin, you want to make the most of your next trip away or even plan that hunt of a lifetime, we've got something for you. You'll find our podcasts on Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon and plenty of others. And if you want more, head over to our YouTube channel, The Hunters Campfire, where we have plenty of how-to and hunting videos along with the full video production of every podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and good hunting.
And carry on.
So listen, guys, if you're listening, this is actually supposed to how this podcast is rolling tonight. So let's
just keep going.
Let's keep going.
Well, so ChatGPT is basically, it's how they output the algorithm together and how they're programming it. So you can literally, it's unbelievable for one part, because you can say, teach me about biomechanics or astrophysics as if I'm a 6-year-old, and it will differentiate how it gives you the information. And he gave an example on the Joe Rogan podcast, and it was talking about how, I can't remember what topic, but he was talking about how, your toy that you love can be in this place, but exist in this place. Quantum mechanics it was. It could be here and here. And he explained it as if the person was a 6-year-old. And then you could do it as a 13-year-old. So you could bump yourself up and slowly learn it really well. But he was saying the biggest problem is if you have someone typing in the information and they're politically biased or whatever it might be, anti-hunting, all of a sudden it's spewing out information that is not accurate, or it has been tainted.
Yeah, it can be influenced.
And that's what this guy was saying. So as it's trolling information, it started off trolling information that we would assume or was correct. So it started at if it was an academic topic, it started at an academic level, but as it starts trolling, it starts to get further and further out. So eventually it's probably going to tell you the world is flat, because it'll find enough information to prove that the world is flat. So it's really quite interesting. I think that's really a great unintended, because this guy was telling me about, using chat GDP, or GP, whatever it is, to develop a YouTube channel and content. And I said, well, what I've discovered is, having two boys, 8 and 10, that there's two types of content. There's the content you put your heart and soul into and you make something really good that no one watches. And then you make a 15-minute video about how you go from day 1 as a Minecraft character to day 100 as a Minecraft character. And it runs for 50 minutes and 30 million people watch it, and it just runs. And that's how, because my boys have introduced me to Mr. Beast and those kind of guys, and you just watch their content and you just go, holy moly. It's just, you can see where the volume comes from. It just runs constantly. It's just like this, Minecraft character, day 1, day 100, or 10,000 dragons versus 10,000 Spartans versus 10,000 coppers, and it's just this really clunky animation fight that just runs 24 hours a day, and they just watch it and watch it and watch it and watch it.
That is the scary thing, and it's you're sitting there as a teacher. I sit there and go, kids nowadays don't watch TV. It's all YouTube, it's all Instagram, or Snapchat or TikTok is the main one, and that is their source of information. It's their entertainment. It's a different
it's so
world,
short, right?
And that's the scary part.
Because
their attention span is
everything
so
is
short.
30 seconds or 20 seconds or something like that. So it must be destroying their attention span.
Well, that's the thing, is that it's, everything's instant gratification nowadays. No one really works for anything. And I think that's probably the thing I love about hunting, is that it's not just walk out there and get something. It's that journey. And I'm trying to instill that in my kids, and it's hard because they're only little. The oldest is 3. But trying to teach him that, it's okay to be bored, and so okay to not get that satisfaction straight away, because a lot of kids don't have that anymore. It's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a 5-year-old, nearly 6-year-old, and he's full of beans, and he's gone through the phase already. It'll come back. He's gone through the phase already of being glued to a TV whenever he's allowed to be, or grabbing an iPad because he can see it over there and he knows Dad's password and he can get onto it. And we restrict it. We're a little bit careful with it, but he's gone through that phase already, and he's now getting booted out of the house during the day on a weekend, and he's bored. He's bored, so he's got to make his own fun. And all of a sudden, he's got a sword, stick, and a dragon over there, and something else to go and beat up. And he's got the suction cap bow, and he's got my indicating dog flushing chickens out of the hedges, trying to plink away at them. And it's great for them to get out there and be mischievous. I saw the most awesome post that I'm sort of trying to live by a little bit, and that was don't stop your children doing dangerous things carefully. And I thought that was brilliant. He's making a ramp. He's on his 2-wheel push bike that he's just taken training wheels off. He's got his helmet on, and he's managed to get his little elbow pads and things from his mum's skate. So he's being safe. But man, that jump's pretty big. You just got to let him go. You got to watch him do it.
Yeah, you got to let him go. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a guy who I think I can't remember his name now. I think his last name is Tulliver, and he wrote this series of books called basically it was about, he did this TED talk, and that's where it started, about allowing your kids to do dangerous things. And he had a book about the 15 dangerous things your kids should be able to do, and it was like light a fire and these things. And so he was all about that. And I haven't listened to him for a while, but he used to run these kind of summer camps where he would allow kids to use power tools and build stuff. And they would build the most ridiculous things. Like they built this roller coaster. It was like a ground level roller coaster, so because it basically is gravity. But they built the whole thing, tracks the whole thing. These kids with power tools. And he showed them how to use power tools and said, "Okay, build this roller coaster." And this really interesting thing happened was they built at one of the camps. They built boats and they dragged them out and they sank. So they went on, they dragged them back in, and he said they were sitting there and they were the boat sank, and he didn't say anything, and they started to decorate the boats, paint them. They started drawing on them, and he said he just didn't say anything and let them go. And after a while, they went, well, maybe if we do this and we do that and we do this. But they had to go through this process where they just had to basically disconnect their brain from what happened to them, the sinking boat, and they did it by basically drawing and decorating and painting. And once they did that, they started thinking, okay, and then eventually they went back and they modified these boats and they started making boats that work. So it was really quite an amazing process about how they went through that. He just let them go, do it, you'll figure it out. Don't hold them back. And I think that's a really big outcome of all that. Let them do things that are a bit dangerous. A little bit dangerous, not too dangerous.
Back to GPT.
I think when you get that,
and look, and it's hard. Okay, it's hard. So letting your kids walk home from school or walk into school by themselves and stuff like that, it's hard, but it's character building and builds resilience and all those wonderful things.
I think it's that creative. If you're not bored, you don't get creative. And, I've seen it. Some of the best things I've learnt have actually been from my students who have just come up with these amazing ideas. I'm a PE teacher, and I remember we did this health priorities assessment task where they had to create a product that could promote health or look at something. And one of these students came up with this brilliant idea about a watch band that would change color in the sun to let you know how much UV exposure you would get so that you wouldn't get skin cancer. And I was just sitting there in awe, sort of going, this is a 17-year-old girl who has just come up with this idea that could be, revolutionary if we can work out how to do it. And that just came from someone with no experience, no anything, that, they're still a kid just learning. And it just amazes me that, everyone from all walks of life have so much to offer. And I think that's, it's great to hear those sort of things.
Yeah, you would cross a lot of really amazing creative minds in what you're doing. What year are you allowed to go into this? I know you're teaching stuff's a little bit.
Yeah. I'm a head teacher PE and down here in Sydney, and I teach year 7 to 12. So sort of the 12-year-olds up to, I've taught kids that are 19. So
yep. Yeah,
I reckon you
some
should
pretty
introduce
creative-
yourself.
pretty
Matt.
creative
I reckon you
people
should,
in that book.
Matt. I think you should introduce yourself. I think we might get
It's gonna be hard.
someone's
Read the
going to listen
title,
to this and
people.
go. Someone's listening to this and go, what's going on here? Okay, so
We're
Matt,
just
introduce
talking
yourself.
random.
That's it.
Yeah, Matt. I'm from Sydney. Basically, I host Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast. Pretty new into the hunting game, and had a bit of a passion for podcasting, and started up the Endless Pursuit with a couple other guys, and that sort of ended, and I've moved on and gone out on my own, which has been it's been great. It's been a big change, which has been nice, but also I'm thoroughly enjoying what's happening and talking and meeting to new people, and it's pretty interesting. It started actually from a teaching thing. My first podcast was actually making boring, just me talking into a microphone for my HSC students so they would get great results and get into uni. That's how it started. So they could just drive to school, and I started with that, and it got the bug, sort of went, oh, that sounds crappy, but I can fix that. And I love learning about a variety of things. So that's how it all came about. So yeah.
Wow.
That's good, mate. And the relaunch has been well received. We've been following along and enjoying the guests that you're bringing on. So well done with that. It would have been easy to pack the cards up and go home when all of the work and effort you put in sort of came to an end abruptly. But good on you for trucking on, mate, and getting it running. So
yeah. Cheers. It's been good. It's one I see things very different. Like I love listening to all the different podcasts, and I see things so differently to some of you guys. And, I was listening to your dear one the other day, and there's things I haven't even thought about, but that's how I learn, and talking to people is how I learn. So it's great because there's so many good ones out there with so much expertise. I sort of feel that my one's not too bad because I'm not the expert, and that I maybe think about things that you guys have probably forgotten because you're so good and so been doing it for so damn long.
Yeah, I the same. I enjoy listening to other people's podcasts. I always wish that there was a button I could push to interject. So, well, they've changed the subject now. I've moved on. One that comes to mind, and I'd love to cover it. This is all questions without notice, of course, and this is the way tonight's going to go. You had a conversation the other day that I was listening to. Excuse me, and you were talking about your hunt that you caught up with James. Now, I'm not talking about the podcast with James from Blackfoot. I'm talking about the previous podcast where you talked about that hunt. Can't remember which one it was. Excuse me. You talked about that deer that you saw and then got shot some however many kilometers away. Now, don't take this the wrong way. I was listening away. I called bullshit on you in my car. No way. No chance that deer where you were travel that far and get shot by James. And I know you got proof. I want to hear about it.
I'll send you.
Can you retell it? Retell it.
Yeah, sure.
To hear it, because this is bizarre.
I have never hunted in the rut. It was my very first experience in the rut down at Mooragle North, and I went down with two other guys, and we met James from Blackfoot Designs. Great fella, and we didn't know him, so we ended up sharing camp, and that we'll get out of that. He went down one way, and we went up to the sort of top in a different section, and I was chasing it in the first morning that I was there, after the first evening, and got super close. The buck rang past me at about 7 meters, chasing 3 does. And if you've ever been to Mooragle North, there's a big power line that runs straight through it. And they basically were crossing over that. You can't shoot through it, obviously an exclusion. And they were going back and forth. Now, the only reason I know that is I had a mate, Tristan, there, and he filmed it. So he had he's a great photographer and videographer, and he got these great photos of this buck. So from where I had missed it, essentially, we worked it out about 30 odd minutes. It covered 3 kilometers the way the crow flies. I've got the GPS location because I actually went to the buck and helped him carry it out. Little did we know that it was the buck that I was chasing in the morning. And that's why I know exactly where we were, because I've got obviously that GPS location and the other one. So look, it wasn't 3 exactly. It was about 2.91 Ks. But,
close enough.
neither here nor there.
Mm.
At that
So how
point,
do
I
you know it
went,
was the same buck? How do you know it was the same
bullshit,
buck?
no way.
The
Doesn't
photos.
The
So
photos,
I'll get him
okay.
to send me
Yeah.
the photo. So we got the photo from Tristan that's got it running across the power line, and then we've got the photo of him that's
on the
harvested it,
deck. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like it's identical.
Mm.
There is unbelievably no mistake in it. I'm happy to share them. I'll send them
I'd love
across.
to.
If
And-
anything
and-
different, tell me.
This is where I want
What
to
was
What was it?
and say,
No.
come on, it's the same genetics, it's the same area, it's got the same cleft, it's the same color. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just that in the moment when I was saying, I'd love to ask questions here. When you're listening to podcasts, you don't get that opportunity. I'm like, 3Ks, doable. Half an hour, a deer on the hoof, no worries.
Yeah.
It had to be being pursued. Man, that's a long way for it in half an hour.
Well, that's what I thought, and I'm glad you brought it up, to be honest, because I'm super shocked about it, and it doesn't make sense from where he was chasing the girls to where he got to bed down, and James shot him. He was just bedded down eating.
That was the point.
He actually shot him.
He wasn't on the run anymore.
Better.
He'd run flat bicky for 30 minutes to get 3Ks, and then calmed himself down and bedded.
Well, a deer won't have to run flat bicky for half an hour to do 3Ks. It did 3Ks in 3 minutes. Stop it. Yeah. That's it. I mean, it's that distance is nothing for a deer. That timing is nothing for a deer. My question is, why did it run that distance?
It's a long way to go.
The distance is not a problem. I've watched red deer literally just run a long way. Just going, it's running, it's not stopping, it's going. They've got the asses flared, and they're just gone, and you just go, wow, that thing's just moved at ridiculous speed. So I don't think there's any issue about it covering that time in that distance in that time. My question is, why would it do that?
Especially if he was holding Hans as well. If he had Hans with him, why would he have to go that far? You think he would stay with the ladies.
I don't understand why he would run that one, unless the power lines were spooking the shit out of him.
He was. This was the interesting thing, because the other croaking buck on the other side was like young, like Spiker, because I bumped him later because I crossed over thinking, it's still over there, because I hadn't seen any of this, mind you, because Tristan had sat back filming and whatnot. I was right down chasing them, and then I crossed over trying to see what had happened, and little did I know that he'd got the doe and pushed her back across anyway. And then I bumped the Spiker about another 45 minutes. So it was sort of interesting because he, we think he was the big buck for the area, but it's a big area, and it's it was a long way away.
That's it. 3Ks for an animal is a long way for it to run, because no predator is going to pursue it that far. So animals, when they're spooked and they want to get away from a predator, they'll turn it on and go, but they don't. They're not like. They're not Forrest Gump, they're not going to keep running. They're going to quickly kind of go, I'm out of danger, and they're going to pull up.
Plus it's thick.
That's a long way for an animal to move just to being spooked.
I love it. I think it's a great story. Can't wait to see the photos.
It is. It's interesting. I want to know. I want to know what.
I'm not denying.
I just want to know. Was that? I'd like to go back there with a fluoro tube and hold it up and see if that tube lit up, because the area is buzzing, and the deer just went.
It probably is.
Just combobulated. It's bloody. It's just
nuts are vibrating.
Just confused the shit out of its nervous system. And went, that's really weird. That is weird. But look, there's weird, hunting.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, man. I was in the middle of Pilliga West, which is even more remote than Pilliga East, and I was off track following goat, and I found a printer, a dot matrix printer. Who's travelled 2 hours?
The gods must be crazy.
To dump a printer
To nowhere,
gods
then
must
got
be
out
crazy.
of their car, travelled 2 hours to nowhere, then got out of their car, then gone for a walk to dump a printer. I mean, what was in that printer? Man, was it was it strontium 90 or something? Was it used in, was it from Pine Gap or something? What was on that printer, mate? They went Yes, I went, there's a printer. I couldn't believe it. I went, there's a printer here. It's not like it was on the side of a track. It was in the scrub.
Well,
So
you do find some weird stuff.
forestry guy obviously was, carrying in to do a bit of writing. He printed it out and he left it there inside. I'll come back. I don't know.
We found a porcelain toilet in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's a long way into the middle of nowhere. Someone's had to have taken that in. But why? I didn't get that. We found a sofa.
I found the sofa, that one in Nundle.
Nundle.
The top.
Yeah. The sofa up there. There's a few weird things that we've found in there, but
That's it. Yeah,
Matt, you're getting around a few of these parks now. You've got a local one now that you found with your bow, and you've been in and around a few state forests in the last couple of years. Found anything weird and wacky?
Not really. I've been not yet.
Not yet.
There's been a lot of rubbish, which is a bit disappointing. But not really anywhere that I've sort of gone, that's extremely weird. I've never even seen a trail camera.
Oh, really?
There, to be honest, never seen one.
Not looking for them though, either.
Not looking for them, but I try to get off the beaten track a fair bit. I sort of look at where most people might be going and try and go somewhere else. Just to, it is public land and there's a lot of people out there and that's the beauty of it. But it's also, I want to try and find some spots that people might not be there and they might not be as skittish. So,
yeah, I had a trail camera down in Nundle, Hanging Rock it was, taking photos for a year, had an incredible amount of photos on it. And I had a mate that had been coming hunting with us for a little while, Tim, who's listening. He was going back to Hanging Rock. I said, mate, go down and check out my camera. Here's the spot. And he came back out. He goes, mate, I couldn't find it anywhere. I looked exactly where you said it was. It wasn't there. And 8 months later, I went back for the rut, picked up the camera. There's Tim staring straight at the camera like this. I couldn't see it. But it was right there. It would have been 3 meters from it. It was at eye height. No problem. It's a great photo of Tim. Anyway, they're hard to spot for a reason.
If you're not looking for them, you're looking for sign of that on the ground. You're not looking for camera.
Oh yeah, I mean that's right. If you kind of catch in your eye line, you go, oh, there's a geometric shape on a tree that jumps out. But I mean, if you're not looking for them, you easily walk past them. And I noticed that my trail cams, they must make some kind of noise.
Always looking at the camera.
I've got a couple of shots of this red roo just kind of literally kind of staring at it, right in the face of it, just looking, and another one of a deer kind of looking sideways at this thing. So they must make some kind of noise. There must be something to them that, especially the cheaper ones, because I'm only using cheap ones, and this roo's just looking straight at it. You can see him. He's gone pop, pop, pop. Oh, there's something over there, and he's just come up to it straight out.
And you often see deer, when they capture the video, spin around and look at the camera. So whether it's the light, we're not quite as smart as we think we are, but they get used to them. Yeah,
I don't know, but that's it. They certainly. But I haven't seen that many trail cams. I've picked up a couple. I've not touched them, but I've seen a few of them. But I haven't seen any in places like the Pilliga or anything like that, because it's just too big. But certainly, and I mean where you are, Matt, you get probably the forest that more people visit than we tend to hunt. Probably the most common one that we hunt is Nundle, or the Nundle system. That gets a lot of people, but Pilliga doesn't get that many people. Severn gets a lot of people, but it's a small block, so they tend to kind of cycle through it pretty quickly. So yeah, I mean, there must be quite. I know, and you see a lot of guys got trail cameras down on the Facebook pages. So there's plenty of them out there.
Have you bumped into any of the Ranger ones?
Have not seen any. Well, that's what's been really interesting. I had a lot of issues with Belanglo, to be honest, because part of the DPI is that obviously with their written permission is that if you've got to obey forestry signs.
Yeah.
And for a long time, and they still actually are currently, well, the last time I was there, which was a few weeks ago now, but it says all the roads are closed. Now, for me, saying no traffic through, for me, it's like we can't go in there. And then, so I contacted forestry and spoke to the bloke that runs Belanglo and got him to send me an email in writing. So I've got it to say, yeah, well, he considers that if you've got written permission, you're good to go.
Yeah.
But
okay.
But the road, all the signage is saying you can't be in there.
That's
and
interesting.
then, it's very interesting, and that's why I was sort of very hesitant, sort of I wanted it in an email, and he was sort of taken aback by that, and I was like, well, mate, our written permission clearly states this. You're telling me something else, but if I run into DPI, what's going to be my response when they say, mate, it's in your written permission? Oh, this bloke said something.
As
I was
said,
like,
it
I'd
was
rather
Prove it.
I said I'd rather have something written from you just to be on the safe side. I like to do everything above board and make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So he was good enough that he sent it out. But that's sort of where the only time I've gone in, and there's a lot of signage from DPI saying the area is under surveillance. So I'm guessing if they've got, a couple of signs in there, they've probably got them somewhere, but I haven't seen them. And I haven't ever ran into a DPI officer either. So
Haven't you?
no.
Usually. Yeah.
Usually.
Only ever at Nundle, nowhere else. Ned Macon many years ago.
We invite them to camp. When we have our hunt camp, we invite them down to come have a chat with the boys, just to answer any of the questions that they might have. This sort of stuff comes out. We had a couple of them show up. We were in the middle of butchering some deer and doing a demo. They stood around and watched the whole time. They were quite keen to hear what was going on. They were the ones that showed up to camp to tell us about the rule that they were going to enforce about having to camp in the forest that you booked.
Yeah.
Because there's a park there. You're probably not familiar with it, mate, but there's a common campground that sort of borders Hanging Rock and
Ponderosa.
Ponderosa.
I heard you mention it before.
Can't stay there anymore if you're staying at if you're hunting Nundle. So anyway, they came and they were fine about it. They've always been really good fellas, so it's been really good. But on your point about forestry, I've mentioned this before too, but it's worth covering it off. Quite often the parks are shut down for fires for the whole summer season, not by the fire brigade, not by the whatever you would call them, the fire authority, but by forestry. And I went into one of the parks and it had been raining for a week, and I rang the phone number on the sign that you see, the DPI sign it says for inquiries ring this number. I rang this number. I said, I'm camping up here. It's wet as hell. Can I, what's the deal with the fires? And he says, oh, no, it's fine. It's a blanket cover, but we know you're there. Thanks very much for letting us know. If you're using a fire pit that's up in that that campsite, it's absolutely fine. Put it out when you're done. And that was fine by me. Kept his name, kept his phone number. Never had an issue with it, but I'm certainly happy to ask forestry at any point in time to clarify a rule, because the local on-call guys are usually happy to accommodate. So,
yeah, I mean, that's it. John and I encountered that was it a year ago or 2 years ago now, Mark?
2 years ago, yeah.
Down in Pilligo. So there was a sign that was it was a forestry sign that said, total fire ban till April. And, and it was, it had to be gas only.
Well, I rang the DPI because I was pretty confused about the road's closed, can we go in? And the DPI's response on the person on the phone, he was pretty good, but he just said, mate, if the roads say closed, you can't travel on it. So it was sort of, they were both giving conflicting information. That's one of the reasons I wanted an email, because I was just sitting there going, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. DPI were going, well, can you book it? And I was like, yeah, you can book it. So he goes, well, we're there, it's open, but if they're saying the road's closed, you've got to follow it. And it's sort of, this isn't really helping me, guys. I just want to hunt.
Getting that wrong has all the insurance implications that you don't want to know about. Right?
That's right. But nah.
Well, even more, I don't have private access. I've that's nothing I've ever been exposed to. So I probably go a little bit crazy on the not wanting to do anything wrong in a state forest, because that's my hunting. So if that gets taken for an innocent mistake, that there sort of goes hunting for me, and I don't really want to take that chance. So
those rules are hard to get to know. They are hard to get to know. I was giving a guy a hand, like we tend to do 5 or 6 times a week. Someone will ring and say, hey, I'm going here, give us some pointers. We've listened to your podcast. What else can you tell us? And he was on the phone this afternoon. I said, so where are you going? Going to Nundle. Where are you staying? Ponderosa. I said, really? how well did you listen to the podcast, mate? Because we've covered that you can't do that, and it's like, oh, all right. So what's so we've sort of educated him a little bit there, and so what's the plan? He goes, I'll get there Thursday night, and I'll take the spotlight and the thermal out. We'll go and have a look. And I said, oh, cool. You'll be able to see what's going on out there. What are you going to do with your rifles? Oh, they're in the car. I said, mate. I said, you're cruising for it right now because, you get stopped by someone who's checking on the pig doggers.
With a spotlight.
You've now got a rifle, spotlight, and a thermal. Here comes the book, right?
Yeah.
They'll smash you with it right around the ears. So I think sometimes the rules are hard to navigate. Even, no disrespect to the DPI guys, they've got to write the rules in common English that make sense to people, that can be understood, but they can easily be taken out of context. It's like the whole COVID thing. Hunting's an exercise. We can go hunting. You'll read how you want to read it sometimes, and that can be quite difficult. So it's worth asking the question. I agree with you that staying on the right side of it, like a long way on the right side of it, is important. But then we get caught out. I was at Nundle during our hunt camp last year, and I'd had a conversation about where you are and aren't allowed to be. There's this rule about firearms that says, if you put the fear into someone because you've got a rifle, you've broken the law. Like, there are people that come home from the shotgun shoot, clay target shooting, and they're unloading their rifles in the driveway, and the neighbour sees them. They've broken the law. Sadly, that's the state of it. If they feel concerned, well, anyway, I'd shot the steer, and I was on the march back to camp, and the quickest way back was straight up the road. So straight up the road I went, and I didn't see anyone. Oh no, a listener popped past, had a good yarn. He said he was in the forest because he'd listened to the podcast and he'd driven his family down. That was cool. The next car I saw was the Ranger, and he's pulled up next to me. Goes, "Hey, how's it going, mate?" Didn't say a thing about the fact that I was walking up the main road with my rifle. It was in a cover on my pack, stowed away. That was all cool, but I was not sure how far left or right of that line I might have been in that situation, and it's hard to find out. So, I don't know, it's a difficult one. I think it's a real difficult one.
Especially when I was in Nundle and I found a pile of about 30 blank rounds of 223 in a pile.
Blanks.
Yeah. So someone with someone with a semi-auto that shoots blanks in 223 was letting them off right there, and so it was some kind of exercise, obviously, because there was just a pile of plastic blanks. So someone was going there at one stage because they were all on a neat little pile right there. I
think they could have been police.
It was someone doing an exercise. It would have been police or something like that. It's 223 blanks.
We'll just zip up to Nundle. It's safe.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's actually on the corner of Snowballs and Forest Way. I've got a photo of it. In fact, that photo from the last week's podcast where my truck is parked, where I parked that truck and I got out, I went, look on the ground there, and there's a big pile of blanks sitting there. So someone was having a bit of fun there that could be seen as menacing.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Matt, are there any other rules that you find that you're unsure about, or others have been unsure about that they ask you the question? Are there any other vague ones that come to mind?
Mate, a heap. I think, I look at it and
let me get the Bible.
and this isn't being disrespectful to anyone that's written them, but they're not very explicit. They're very open to interpretation, and that worries me. Like what does, when you're traveling with your rifle, what does taking all necessary precautions, what does that look like? Because that's very different for everybody out there. And that's always made me very nervous because, one of the things I do like about hunting is going to a country town and supporting the local community by spending my money there. And where's the line of what you're leaving your rifle in the car? Now, look, I go above and beyond. I have, a lock that goes through the bolt, through the action and whatnot. And that is, for me, I go, well, that's an additional thing. I have everything else locked in different compartments, and I think I could justify that I've gone above and beyond. But, you know, who am I to say that someone doesn't sit there and go, no, well, you could have done this or you could have done this.
Yeah.
That makes me nervous. And one actually question you guys might have a bit more experience to answer was a person reached out and said, what about if you go down to a state forest and you take multiple rifles and you're out all day hunting and you leave one back locked up in the car? And I was like, I don't know. I personally wouldn't do that because you're not near the car. So I think an argument could be made, but the car's locked. Like for me, it's a very grey area. What do you guys think?
I think it comes down to, are you able to demonstrate that you took all necessary steps to secure that firearm? Okay. So ultimately that's what it is, because you're saying, so what we're saying is something has happened and that you've come back to the car and that firearm is no longer there. Okay. So what would happen? And so then obviously that would trigger off a series of unfortunate events. And you would want to be able to clearly state, I've done everything in my power to secure that firearm. And I think if you do that, then, you know, the weight of reasonableness falls in your favor. So if you've got it in the car and it's in a locked container and that container is in a locked car and the necessary things about separating, depending on where you are, separating bolt and ammo and all that kind of stuff, if you followed all that, then I'm assuming that you could argue that I took all necessary steps, because I don't think the legislation says that the firearm always has to be in your possession, but it has to be secured when it's not in your possession. So you could, if you argue that you've made every reasonable step to secure it, then you've done that. On the flip side of that, I never do that. So I don't take more than one firearm to a state forest.
On the flip side of that, I do that.
I'm very nervous. Huh? Yeah, that's right. You do. If you do, if you do it, I do. I don't, because I'm a nervous Nelly when it comes to firearms, and so that's what I do. So I just go, okay, if I'm going to the state forest, this is the firearm I'm taking, and that's what it is. But I go with other people who aren't like that. They go, okay, no, I'm happy to do that. So as long as you are able to argue that you've met all requirements for security, then you've hit the reasonableness test.
I mean, for me, a few years ago, I redid my safety course because I was looking to get my pistol license. And so I redid my safety course, and the course that I attended, the instructor said, and it was a general safety course, it was for, A, B, plus it included category H for your pistols. And the instructor said, her interpretation of that was, if you were going somewhere to the shooting range, going hunting, if you were in a car accident, could someone walk, and you were unconscious, could someone walk up and take the firearm from you? If they can't do that, it's locked away, it's secured, it's, bolted to the chassis or something like that. Then in the eyes of the law, you are safe.
That's a very interesting.
That was what the instructor told me. So that's what I bear in mind now. So if I put the rifle in the back seat, I put a lock through. I've got a bicycle cable, and I put that through, the rifle case, and I secure that to the seat, something like that. Someone can't walk up, just grab the rifle and walk away with it. In the eyes of the instructor, who is a well instructed and well educated person on the laws, felt that was, you were taking the right action to secure that weapon.
And I
you
think
see
the clarity
people
around
that tie down points in the back seat or under the back seat. You can bolt
that's exactly what I use. So I've got a bicycle lock, and I strip it through, and I circle it through, and I wrap around the tie down points on the seat, things like that.
That's really interesting.
Taking reasonable action.
So I've got drawers, and it goes in the drawer, and then the back it's in a case, in a drawer, in a lock thing, and so it's no one can see it, so it's not in plain view. It would be very difficult for it to become in plain view. You couldn't, the car would literally have to kind of peel apart for it to become in plain view. And where it's stored, it's not stored with ammo and stuff like that. So it's stored; those things are stored separately.
Yeah, always keep on separate.
On the back seat with a jacket over it.
Yeah,
that's not quite. But
because remember, you never know when you want to shoot him in the head and kick him. So mate, go.
To answer your question about multiple rifles in the park, I do all of that. I lock it in the car, or But most of the time when I'm taking multiple rifles, it's when we run these camps. And when we run the camps, we organise someone to stay at camp, right? So anyone who's left vehicles, campers, all of that sort of stuff, we have everyone on a sort of a roster. It works itself out, excuse me, over the week. And then someone's looking after stuff. But I put the bolts in my pack. I lug the bolt around. It's no big deal to throw the bolt in your pack. Rifle's useless without the bolt. It'd take a long time for you to go and source a bolt and have it matched up. At that point in time, probably going to get busted for doing it anyway. So that rifle is completely hopeless without the bolt, and I think that's acceptable action to be able to do it. A bit harder if you've got a shotgun. Not going to carry half that gun in my pack. But normally it's a different caliber rifle or a 22 for shooting bunnies or something like that. There's a 25-minute answer for you.
No, I think you make it's worth mentioning something, the point you make there, Matt, that, you're saying that, and I think a lot of people share the same value, that you're kind of over nervous about doing something.
Yeah.
Because, how important it is to you. And for me, this is the counter argument when people say, oh, blokes from such and such are driving up here to poach. If you think about how important this is to you and how much you've invested in it and all those things, the very last thing you're going to do is drive 7 hours just so you can break the law, when you've actually got free access. And I think that's really comes home. You're actually not thinking, oh, how can I cut the system here? You're actually thinking, how do I ensure that there is no way possible I've inadvertently made a mistake here? And I think that speaks volumes for most of the people who are involved in hunting. This is a conversation that happens all the time. How do I stop myself from inadvertently making a mistake? Because it's so invaluable. It's so important to me that I don't. There's so many things that I've got in play here that are important to me that the last thing I want to do is lose the ability to do this simply from making mistakes for lack of effort or lack of knowledge. I think it's quite commendable, and I think we should recognise that in many people who go out of their way not to get things wrong, out of the way to do exactly the right thing, and actually probably go beyond it.
You don't want to be the one who's responsible for.
Well, look, mate, I've
hunting.
known guys who've got pinged for doing something wrong, and it's always been kind of, they've accepted they've done something wrong, but if you went to court, they could probably still defend that they didn't do something wrong. And what I'm thinking of is, I had a friend who got pinged who inadvertently was on the wrong side of a fence. Now, the GPS said he was on the right side of the fence, and he was in green, not pink area, but the landowner said that was my land, and they basically said, yeah, okay, we'll err on the side of you. And my mate went, well, okay, yeah, I'll err on the side of you. And he got pinged for it. But he actually said, well, okay, I accept that. If he went to court, he could have argued quite clearly that the map said I was here. This is what the information. So I think that's more what happens. People are actually worried about not doing the wrong thing rather than how do I get away with it.
There's some excellent spots in the wrong place in many parks. That the boundary says you're in the right place, but you've jumped over, or I haven't, but people have jumped over a pretty clear boundary fence of a farm, but feel they're justified to do so because the map says so. And now I'm in beautiful pasture, waiting for deer to come in at night time. The sniff test doesn't pass, but the map says it's all right.
So I've got another one for you, because my hunt down at Mooragle North, geez, everything happened down there. It was great. So the last night I was there, one of the boys, he went, I don't know, he went up. Oh, no, he had to rescue another hunter who'd got bogged, and he got stuck for 2.5 days. So with his 2 kids, and they'd walked. They were young kids too. They were, I think, don't quote me, maybe 11 and 13, something along those lines. It's
getting worse and worse.
And so he walked up, and these guys walked up. It was funny. We were sitting in camp, and we were joking that we hadn't seen anybody, and it was James from Blackfoot Designs, and He's just gone, there's a couple of people there. And I thought he was, taking the mickey. And fair enough. Sure enough, this bloke was walking up with 2 kids, all in camo and whatnot. They'd walked for something like 4 hours or something. They were just dead set stuffed because it's hilly terrain. And they'd just gone into a patch and got stuck, and he had no recovery gear at all. So that was. So this bloke went out to help him, and they went back up to the main road and went in a different way. But when he was out, he got a message from the DPI saying the maps had been updated. And he got a very brief Wi-Fi, 3G, 4G, whatever it was, and was able to update his maps on the DPI hunting app. Now, he came back to camp. Mine still showed that it wasn't. And a lot had changed. And this was the one that was concerning to me too, because he was saying, I'll come and hunt the front area because that's now been opened up. And I went, well, that's not a bad idea because it's been closed for 3 months, less hunting pressure. Yeah, that sounds good. But my GPS is all the old maps. So I went, I'm not hunting there unless I can update it. So I dead set drove for 40 minutes and tried to find every 4G network anywhere I could. I eventually updated it and found it. And I was able to get the new maps on the DPI. So I could hunt there. But I sat there and went, okay, I'm in the forest. I have zero idea. I'm on my own. I go into that section that has been updated and might have been updated for 2 days and I've been in there for 4. Geez, that's a tough one. I get you probably could say, mate, I've been here for 4 days. Look at the written permission. But it's a tough one for me too, because I sort of went, oh, I don't know. Like,
I think you've done exactly the right thing the whole way through that. You didn't have a written permission to hunt it, so you couldn't hunt it. You went and updated it, so you could. Absolutely fine. Was it a crossover period from
No.
from one
No,
continent?
not at all.
It was just a random update.
Mid-April, I think we were there. I think it happened on about the 17th of April.
I think
really weird.
I'd be interested to know if any of the ground on the original map went away. Did you lose access, or did you only? So you actually lost access. You could have
lost
been
a
hunting
heap of access.
What's an
And
losses?
there's it's all native, so there's no pine where we were hunting.
Forestry.
A heap got taken out. Like a heap got taken away because we were just like, whoa, that is some big chunks there that have been now taken off, and a heap of new stuff been added. And that, it was very weird.
That is, I've never experienced that. Must admit, I've never experienced a non-scheduled update. So, like, if you're going to hunt, near the end of the quarter, like we did. So, we were hunting the last days of June and the first days of July. We knew that was going to be a challenge to us, but DPI put the maps up about a week before the change, and there was significant change.
Pretty normal.
The only challenge was the only challenge we had with it was that we had 2 forests, so we had to have 4 maps, and the free Avenger only lets you have 3 maps. So we figured out though you could have the 4th map on there, it just can't be activated.
You just kind of bought it, you bought it off.
So after July 1, we removed the up to June 30 maps and that allowed the 4th map to turn on, which was the 2 July maps. But I've never had an update, and to be honest, I've only started using the Hunt New South Wales app. So if it's happened in the past, in the last 15 years that I've been hunting forests, and I've only been carrying the phone for the last year, so I would have missed it because I've got a GPS and it's not Wi-Fi, it's not hooked up or anything.
I've had updates, but they come via text. You get a text saying go and upload. So I haven't missed it.
I haven't experienced that. Wow.
I would have bet the bloody house on the fact that there would have been no land taken away, because there's conversations that happen frequently when you talk to DPI guys. The forestry want to send workers in to do something, they can rezone a section, but they can't do it. They've got to give appropriate notice to hunters.
I thought they had to give like
that. So I think you've experienced the glitch, to be fair.
Yeah, mate. That's really interesting.
It'd be worth following it up with DPI and just saying, hey, this is what happened. What's the go?
They did text message, but the problem, we had no reception.
That's it. So
like, it was only a freak occurrence. It was freak occurrence that he actually went out to help a bloke and found out.
Yeah.
Because I generally will get into a forest, I won't leave. So I would not have, if I was there on my own for that trip, there was no way I'd know.
I think you could definitely argue that one.
You probably could, but
I mean, well, it's not an argument. Look, I've got no, you've got no way of accessing the updated information.
I think that's cool. The question is why, and then who might have had to go in there to do something that was now at risk, right? That's the question for me. Were they sending workers in? Was there something going on? Were they recovering a dozer that got bogged? Who knows what it was that they were doing and why they changed it? But were there now other humans in there that you weren't aware of, which is potentially an issue? But
what I've always wondered about exclusion zones, and again, the last trip made me wonder this aloud, is that there's there's a part of the forest that's being worked on, so it's being clear felled or whatever it is. So there's an obvious reason. So if I look at it, I go, okay, that's obviously an exclusion zone, and the map tells me that. Okay, don't go in there because there's activity going in there. What I find interesting is there's fossicas and they're in there. They're in this work zone. So I don't think they do fossicas have to get a map about where not to go and where to go?
But do you think that the work zone's shut off for the safety of the visiting person? I think the work zone's shut off because they don't want people shooting rifles around them.
I thought the work zone was shut off because it's a work zone. And they don't want anyone in there. They don't want anyone in there who's not working.
I mean, if there's forestry, then there's heavy machinery and things like that.
That's right.
But they'll put signs up saying you can't come in here, road closed or area closed.
Yeah, but
so fossica's not going to go in.
Well, no, these well, you might think that, but they were in there with, and I don't understand fossicking because but there's guys in what looked like in the middle of a cleared fell paddock with picks digging stuff. Maybe they were looking for, what was it, Bangalore? Maybe they were looking for something like that.
Ivan Milat.
Yeah. That's right. They're looking for, memorabilia of Ivan Milat. I don't know, but I thought that's a work zone. It tells me it's a work zone. I'm going to keep away from it. Yeah, no, I understand. The question is that I might be a risk to the people working in there, but in the same instance, you're not allowed to walk through a work zone. You can't walk through a construction site. You can't walk through. You just can't go, well, I live over there. I'm just going through the construction site.
But hang on, just because you can walk through it, even if it is an exclusion zone.
That's it. I mean, you can walk through it.
Yeah. So why couldn't a Fossick sit down and pick up rocks?
That's right. So you can go in there.
They're not allowed in there because we've got rifles. They don't want us in there because we've got rifles. And it's a danger to them. Not
I can kind of I concur that there's that's a potential risk, but I would have thought purely from a health and safety point of view that a work zone was a work zone, and they don't want people in a work zone who who are not working in that work zone. Because, I mean, these fossicas were they weren't just like some guy, with a stick digging. There was a crew of them in there busily working away. 3 or 4 vehicles digging stuff up. I don't know. They were digging up stuff that I thought, I would not have guessed that you would have dug stuff up. As I said, I don't understand the process of what they were doing, but they were digging stuff up. And
Nundle would be surely looking for gold, but you'd expect the creek's not in the middle of a.
But they weren't in the creek. They were in a flat. Yeah, so what's in there? Yeah. So I mean, I've always kind of shaken, went, okay, sure. I understand the firearm component, but I don't understand the access to a work zone component.
Was it Belanglo? This is the interesting. Someone asked me the other day, have I put any trail cameras up in there? And I've gone, well, no, I haven't, because I
scared of ghosts.
I said I don't. The way it gets booked out super quick. There's 2 spots. It's weekday only, so like the chances of me getting there are very slight in school holidays, and that's all. It's generally booked up very, very quickly. Would that mean I can't go in there? Because as far as the permission that I've got from forestry is that you can only go in there if you've got a reason. Is getting a trail cam a reason? Or that? I don't think it is. So I'm sort of sitting there going, I don't want to put them in there, and then I can't book in because sometimes they have for 2.5 months I can't book in, and I'm like, oh.
There's some
Well,
special
a couple
rule about
times-
this part. Are you not allowed in there if you're general
So,
public?
so it got flooded. So when we got hit with the floods down here in Sydney, I mean, where I live, what they said, it was a once in 100-year flood that happened twice.
Oh, I'm up to my fourth.
Oh, it's crazy. But it was
On my fourth.
within 2 months or whatever it was. So the roads got absolutely totaled.
Yeah.
And that was the main reason is they didn't want his reasoning was they don't want general traffic going on the roads. So he basically said you have permission to drive straight to the area you want to hunt, and that is it. So from me taking that, going, okay, like you can't even drive around to sort of scope it out, even though you got permission there. He just wants you to drive straight in, park, and then you're good. I went, well, they're not going to let you go in to get your trail cameras or to scout if you haven't got, not even take the bow in, just go in to scout. That's off the cards. Unless you were to park where you're allowed and then walk all the way in, I'd be guessing maybe. But it was I don't know, again, there's just a lot of grey areas, and I don't like operating in the grey. I like to be very black and white. I mean, I've got a safe inspection coming up. That's the first one. I can't sort of wait because, mate, I've got the 150 odd kilo safe, and I don't have that many rifles in it, so I'm well and truly above. Just because, I hate I had a mate that said they tried to move the safe, and they felt like it moved a mil, and said no, not secure. And I just went, oh, I don't want that to happen to me. And he ended up, the guns went back to the police station, and there was a massive rigmarole to go back.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he said literally, he's a builder by trade, and he dynabolted and chem set the dynabolts into the ground. He said it wasn't moving, but the officer felt that it was moving. And
sometimes they've got weak bases. So the chem set, you can still bend the steel on the base.
Yeah. So
thick steel.
That would take some doing.
Especially if it's bolted to the wall as well.
That would take some doing. Yeah, you can, but it was so. Did the Incredible Hulk come and
maybe he's on steroids and
that's right.
Mind you, I know
Wood Rage cop decided, I can make this move.
A couple of my mates that are police, I tell you what, geez, they're units. So they're pushing 50, and they do. You should see what they're doing in CrossFit and whatnot. I just sit there and look at them and go, oh, okay, maybe he was out there inspecting. I don't know. But
I've never had a problem with them. I've had a couple of them over the years, and I actually got a funny story about one. So I had a number of years ago, my eldest was still at his prep. So year before, so four going on 5. Had the inspection, they rang up, had this really blurry message on it, and I called the cop station, said, hey, look, I've just got this call, I don't know what's about. And they said, it's about an inspection. Sure, okay, sure. I said, look, I'll be home. When do you want me there? And they said, and I said, they were a bit taken aback. And I said, you tell me when you want to be there. And I said, can we come over today? I said, sure, no problem. So I get over there. I just opened up, gave them the key, said, what do you want to do? And they just said, you just here's the list. And I said, I looked at the list and I said, the list is wrong. And they go, why? And I said, well, that one's sold, that one's bought. And I said, have you got proof of this? I said, sure. So I got up and went, here's all the slips. I went, okay. So then they just did the inspection by looking at serial number and, what was on the thing. And then, no problem. They were there, they were gone, they were chatty. There's an older guy, younger guy. The older guy was more chatty. On the way out, they, my wife and my son come in the door, and the baby at the time, our 8-year-old, who was a baby at the time, was asleep upstairs. And my eldest shushes the cops. He goes, shh, you woke up my brother. And everyone has a little giggle about that, And they give him this little sticker, like, junior police detective sticker. And it fits perfectly on a lanyard card. So I got a lanyard card. So we stuck it on this thing. So it looks, and he's got it around his neck. So he's got a little badge. He goes to prep the next day wearing this thing. Proud as punch. And he goes, and then supposedly the teacher goes, oh, what's that? And he goes, oh, police gave this to my dad when he came over to talk about all his guns. You know? and when I went to pick him up prep, they kind of went, "Oh, I said an interesting thing today." I said, "Oh yeah, what did he say?"
Mm.
It's about oh yeah, it's pretty much true. But yeah, so that for me, they've always been easy peasy breeze. But I mean, I've heard some horror stories, but I haven't experienced them myself. So I don't know. I would assume that with 150 kilo safe, unless, you know, a Hulk officer comes over, I would assume that's going to be, well, that's over the weight.
yeah,
that doesn't
to
require
pick it up
bolting
It
down.
is. Yeah, I've got that, and I've got all the paperwork for it to say,
Yeah.
hey, it doesn't need to be bolted down.
Yeah.
So, like, here's everything here. But again, it's that me just going above and beyond because I just, you know, for
That's right.
my
It's
profession and just the, you know, just in general, like, you know, setting the example and talking about what we need to do because, you know, down here in Sydney, it's a bit different. Living in the city, when you talk about these things, it's just alien to people. And, you know, you see the concern in their eye that, oh, you shoot, and they just don't, they're not exposed to it, and they
it's
don't.
amazing. They don't get
it.
It's truly amazing because
it is. It's
in one lifetime before it would have been completely normal for people to be out shooting pigeons and rabbits, living in Sydney and eating that game. It would have been completely normal.
Well, look, Mark, look at those posts this week with the Maya Centre.
Yeah, Maya Centre, 1964. Come into a newly opened, expanded firearms department on the first floor and come and talk to our firearms expert here at Maya. You know,
it wasn't that long ago. You could jump on the train or a bus with the rifle, you know, and geez, like imagine the panic that happens. I think there was an incident down here at Mount Druitt the other day, and someone pulled out like a cap gun or something like that. Or I think it was young kids, and it sent the Westfields into lockdown, and people were running, like sprinting and running like crazy. And it's a big chaos thing. It's on the news, and it's it's just so different. There's a real fear about firearms, and it's, you know, I covered a lot on my podcast because I've really concerned. Like I've just had, you know, newborn twins. Or I shouldn't say that, they've hit the 1 mark, but I'm really nervous. They're never going to be able to hunt, and they're never going to be able to get out into the bush into the same capacity that I am. And I'm Aboriginal, so for me, there's a cultural connection. I do, you know, I want to do things that my ancestors did. Yes, I'm doing it differently, but I really want to. You know, I always feel at home in the bush, and I want my kids to be able to experience that. And it makes me more nervous every time I see how disconnected we are getting as a society. And how do we fix that? And that concerns me. I don't know the answers, and I don't know how. But we need to do something, and we need to be really trying to change the narrative. And you know, it's concerning and it's worrying, and I have so many conversations where I had one with the person that didn't understand the ribs they buy from the supermarket are the same as the ribs on an animal.
That's right.
And that was I just, how do you sort of sit there and go, it's something funny, but it's really scary that this is an adult and they have zero idea. And that, how do you get them, and how do you talk to them? And you know, I've got one of my podcasts will come out before this one, but talking about social media and talking about, you know, I don't know, maybe you guys know, but does SSAA or any of the bodies have TikTok? Because that's probably something that needs to happen, because that's where the young kids are learning about all these things. And if we're not capturing new hunters and people, and we're not getting them involved in the sport, and our numbers dwindle, or the numbers stay the same because it's only people passing it down to because they're already involved in it, that I feel is dangerous. I feel that's where we lose numbers, we lose ground. Especially migration is a big thing in this country, and people coming in with no experience, with no connection to people, and it's a hard slog. You know, I've got multiple mates I got into hunting, and they got out of hunting just as quick because they came to state forests and it wasn't easy, and they couldn't get private access, and they went, I'm done.
But it's not,
you know?
I mean, and you talk about migration, but you've got people migrating to Australia from places like New Zealand or South Africa, in my case, I know people who've moved over, and in South Africa, hunting is a huge part of their life, and they get here, and it's so difficult to get a license. It's so difficult to find somewhere to go hunting that they give up on it. So they've lost, generational hunters have now lost that because it's so difficult to do. And that's what we try and help hunters where we can, but it's certainly very difficult to get your first firearms license, especially if you're renting. If you don't have permanent residence, it is. If you don't have permanent residence and things like that, it's quite hard to get firearms licenses.
Yeah, I get that.
And if you're renting in a house, when I first arrived here, we rented a house, and my landlord said, "No, you couldn't have a safe." So what do I do?
Yeah. Yep, I understand that.
If you don't have safe storage, you can't get a license. So that was a year of my life where I couldn't have a firearm.
To your point, Matt, I'm not quite sure what the answer is either. I think we do as a podcast community or as social community do a reasonable job of talking to the converted. People are tuning in because they already like what we're doing and what they're doing, and they want to learn more. It's expanding that into the masses that don't have a problem with it, but don't have a voice either way, and trying to get them onto the positive side of the story. It is a very difficult thing with the large organisations, quite separate. I think, Mark, you'll remember this conversation. I can't remember the exact stats, and I don't think you will either, but the general statement when we spoke to some of the larger bodies was the sport is actually growing. There are a lot of people getting into it. It's in a healthy situation, but it's still those people over here that it would be great to have them alongside us, even though they're not shooters, they're not antis.
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with perspective too. So I've been involved this for a few years now, and I went through 96, and because I was a lefty and I didn't have much money, everything I owned was naughty. After it was legal, and it became illegal because I had pump action shotguns, semi-automatic rifles. Okay, they just became illegal. There's two things. I had a lever action that stayed legal. That was it. So overnight, I went from having stuff to having nothing. And I think what happened was what Port Arthur did for a lot of people, and I was one of them, is you went, I accept something has to happen. That was such an event that something has to happen. And I think there was this social contract made, or we assumed it was a social contract, was that if we take it on the chin, if we do something and it's okay, you've done something, and then it'll kind of, it'll blow up, things will get changed, you'll take it on the chin, they'll be tightening up, you'll have a little bit of inconvenience, but it'll kind of return to normal, But what happened was, and this is what I feel, was that those who were anti-gun saw it as a chance to keep punching and kept punching and kept punching and kept punching and kept going. And so you became a potential mass murderer, and then you became a potential terrorist, and you then became a potential this, and you become and you're a redneck, and you're this, and you're that, and they just kept punching. And I think for most people it took about 10 years, but they said, I'm fucking had enough of this. I'm going to start punching back. And then you started to get, a swing in the politics of it. People actually said, look, and so, and I mean, and that's not perfect timing. There's other timing, the shooters, fishers, farmers were happening before that, but there's kind of now a little bit of a polarization where certain polys will say, we support this and stuff like that. Unfortunately, it's divided by the left, right, I think, which is a terrible thing, because I don't think who you vote for once every 3 years should really determine what kind of person you are. But anyway, so what happened was there was a significant downturn in ownership, because people who had guns went, this is just too hard. I got granddad's Schlesinger in the cupboard, I'm just going to give it up, and that's it. And that was it. So people who had some exposure to firearms, that firearm went away, and so that exposure is lost. And as people grew up in that house, there was no linkage to firearms. Conversely, those who kept on became more involved. So now, when you and I, when all of us talk about hunting, we talk at a pretty deep level because it's our stuff. We're really into this. This could, we could be car collectors, whatever. We're right into this thing. So we've got a lot of skin in the game. So this whole thing about I don't want to break any rules. Why? Because I've got so much skin in the game. I've got lots to lose here. So people who now hunt and shoot are far more committed to hunting than shooting than generally before because we've become enthusiasts. There's also a group, I think, of people who actually, and maybe COVID was a trigger for this, who actually want to hunt or who want to be more self-sufficient, and they see hunting as a mechanism of self-sufficiency. Maybe that's a better way to shoot it. And they see shooting as a part of that mechanism. So they're more interested in the self-sufficiency and being more resilient and understanding things like that. And so firearms is a means to the end. So and when we're talking about, Ian, Jono, and I tend to think, and Ian says this, Jono and I can have a conversation about calibers that might last for 4 days. And Ian will kind of go, shut up, and just walk away from it, So some of us are kind of a little bit, idiot savant with not much savant, a lot of idiot involved. And, and some of us are just kind of look at it from a different point of view. But I think a lot of people, and there's a lot of people out there who want to know more. So I actually think that there's actually it's not declining in terms of potential. I think the decline will come if that potential is not realised, because cultures die not because the people participate in them, because you can't participate in them. You're either you're locked out of it, or whatever reason, things die because they wither on the vine. So a hunting culture and a hunting lifestyle requires people to hunt. And this is my argument against those who know me know I argue pretty hard about this in Queensland. You can't build a culture if you can't participate. In New South Wales and Victoria, there's a hunting culture. Why? Because you can participate. You can be part of it. So I think if we can help people on that journey, then we build depth. We build culture. We start to have conversations that aren't so, oh shit, I can't talk about the fact that I'm going to give you a deer. It's venison meat. I think we go past that by building a culture around that, and by that you got to participate. So if you're involved, if you really like hunting, the best thing you can do is get someone who doesn't hunt interested in hunting. They don't have to end up being the best hunter. If you just get them started, and look, and every guy, as you said, you've helped people get started and they've gone it's too hard and they left. Well, that's what they were going to do anyway. But every person you can get who's sticky, who goes, you know what, this is really interesting. This is me. I've discovered new parts about myself. They're advocates. They go buy stuff. They they wear camo hats, all that stuff, and that becomes part of their lifestyle. So I'm actually more, I suppose, positive about our potential, but I also worry about where my boys will be. I do worry about that.
I'd counteract that in two things. I'd say I agree with you in the sense that it might be growing in older people. I don't feel like, I look at the stats from a sporting perspective and I see how all sports are tapering off with the younger generation. They just don't play sport. They're too involved in their tech. They're too involved with their phones. Like you speak to kids nowadays and you grab their phone and look at the screen time and it's 13 hours a day. And that's the concern I have, is that the people I know getting into it are, mid-20s and older. Yeah. Now that's has a growth level, which I agree with you, but I don't feel that the younger generation are getting involved as much. And that's not just what we do. That's not just our sport, whether it be shooting, hunting, the like. That's across the board. That's across, if you go, I grew up playing a multitude of different sports, and you go to athletics now, and that was one of my favorite things to do as a kid, go to Little A's on a Friday night. It's dead. Like
not where we are, mate.
Oh, but okay. So this is the difference, is that maybe it's the city versus the country. Because, I can tell you now the amount of schools that I get 4 or 5 kids for the swimming carnival.
Okay.
That's it. That's it. So like, it's my concern is that it's going to, the younger generation is not going to have that attachment. They will if they've got parents in it.
Yeah.
And I think you make a
Yeah.
good point saying that I do feel that older people are getting into it, and hey, I hope they drag their kids into it too. And that could, really be positive going forward. But I just don't know. That's what scares me. I don't know if we're doing a good enough job to target the younger generation coming through to try and light that fire, because as you said, people are going to come and they're going to go. That's like all hobbies. But there's going to be a lot of people that come, love it, and stick to it. But are we not capturing a new audience as well? That's the only thing I view it from. And it's like data. That's what I said. Like data, you can manipulate data to say what you'd like. I'd love to see and break that down and see the age groups that our sport is growing in, because I think that would be very telling as well.
There's
Yeah,
there's a thing they do really well in New Zealand. Now, obviously, New Zealand's got a great hunting culture. It's accepted. If you're a farmer and you need to go and buy a jacket for the farm, then it's probably going to be a camo one because you multi-purpose it. So when you're going down and doing the shopping in the rain, you're wearing camo. It's just normal. No one even thinks twice about it. But they do a really good thing in their communities. And almost all of these little towns down there, they have a hunting competition where you've got to grab a kid and go and shoot this, that, and the other and weigh them in. And, they make it, it's not just about the hunt, it's competition. They get to brag with their mates. The neighbour's doing it with his kid. You're doing it with your kid. We don't do any of that sort of stuff here. I noticed the other day on socials, I can't remember who's running it, but there's the fox hunt competition that got launched the other day. Have you seen that, Matt?
I know there's a Williams fox shoot that happened
no,
last year, but there's a new one.
Fox Night. It's Fox Night or
Zach
something like
Yeah.
that, isn't it?
Yeah. Zach
Someone's
put it up.
trying
saw
it
it,
up,
but-
and it's
Yeah,
and
it's-
there'll be a national fox drive with a bunch of prizes thrown at it. Really cool. But to your point, grab a kid. But in saying that, in this country, or in Queensland anyway, they can't touch a rifle. The younger demographic you're talking about, they can't touch a rifle. In Queensland, the only way an unlicensed shooter is allowed to touch a rifle is at a range with a range officer. You can't go out on your farm.
Yeah.
Can't do any of that. So our ability to drag these people in has become really difficult as well. It's not the desire that's lacking. It's
Is it a strategy?
Wow, far out. Do you want to deep dive into that? Far out.
Look,
everything's
so-
against it.
So next year, my boy can get the junior or the miner's license. So, which means he can operate a firearm. He can't own one, and he can only technically the minor license only applies to ranges. There is some in the legislation about if you're using it in an agricultural sense, but for the majority of the time, it's for range use. So that's part of the. That's our. I suppose my approach is to bring him up into that, but my other son's not that interested, so he might not be interested. But I think that's part of the the discovery of these things. I think also too. I know it's important that you do bring younger people in it, but I also think there's a changing demographic in terms of the way people approach things too. So I'm not too concerned that we don't have any pre-teens involved. But because one, we live a lot longer, so we're not falling off the perch as quick. And there is, I suppose, there's kind of natural or not natural, but there's barriers to hunting. So one is, you've got to be able to hunt on land. So you've got to be able to, and for most people, if that's public land, you've got to be able to get to it and things like that. And you've got to have a license and you've got to have these things. So it may not be the kind of sport ever that it's a kind of sport that you get into at a certain age. But I think the other important thing is, and Matt, you've referenced it a couple of times, is that idea of, someone brings you into it. Well, for a lot of people that I know, that's not the case. It's been self-discovery for them. So they've discovered it. And that's happened when they're older. So they've kind of got to the stage where they kind of go, I'm kind of know what I'm interested in, but I'm also interested in this thing, so I'm going to go through a discovery stage. And a lot of people that we talk to are in that discovery stage, so they don't actually have the background. They don't have an uncle or anything like that. And I've written extensively about that because I didn't have that. Mine was
Neither do I.
there's no nothing. In fact, my probably family would have, especially my mother would have been dead against what I do. So there was never. So it was a discovery stage. So I think that's also a really strong thing because generally when people are discovering things, they're over 18, they got a bit of money in their hand, and they're voters too, which is really important. So I agree. I don't know how to create a funnel, as it were, other than just demonstrate, the participation with your kids. The other thing is too that's really interesting is that we're, I suppose culturally we're speaking to more and more people cross-culturally about hunting. That's a really interesting thing. So, there's a couple of guys that I think of, that, cross-culturally, very different lives, they have a different approach to things, but hunting is something that, immediately jumps that cultural barrier, and all of a sudden it's a real shared culture, which is also very interesting about people coming to Australia. They're bringing that with them. It's part of their culture. So I think it's contested ground. I think we've got to pursue it.
It's a multifaceted issue. At the end of the day, there's a lot of positives going on. I completely agree, and there are some things that concern me. And I just sit here and go, I wonder what do we need to do? How do we attract more? Because it's a numbers game. At the end of the day, I said it all the time. Look at what's happening. As soon as the bow hunting thing came out in South Australia, Georgie Purcell jumped on it for Victoria, trying to push that through and raise it. And
that's because politicians are grubs.
Exactly.
No, not all of them. Some
are good. But that's the thing. I think we need to be mindful of that going forward. And there is a lot of good work being done out there. It's it's an interesting topic to me. It's something that I always love it, and I'm very big on trying to find out the holes in my argument. I love having an argument with someone more to find out where the gaps in my thought process are, and maybe adjust what I think or find a different reasoning, or to be able to say, hey, no, I still feel this way, but here's my sort of what I would say back to that. So it's an interesting one.
Yeah,
I'm of the Oscar Wilde school, mate. I might be laying in the gutter, but I'm looking at the stars. So,
yeah,
I tend to look
up. It's a really important subject. I think our major organisations can probably do more by banding together. You hear this all of the time. They're fairly, they act in silos a lot, but that's just the nature of it. Individually, if you're trying to protect it, you've got to promote it to people you know. I don't know how many non-hunters now enjoy coming over and having venison for dinner. People requesting it.
Cool. Freeloaders.
Tell them it's illegal in Queensland for me to give you that venison. It doesn't happen. You're not allowed. I'm not allowed to give it to a friend. I'm not allowed to give it to the neighbour. I'm not allowed to give it to family. It has to be consumed on my property, on the property of the hunter by law. Sure, people break those rules, but there are loads of people that are around my orbit that had nothing to do with it before that now appreciate it, and they respect that that's what I do, and they inquire about it to see how I went. So everyone can do that. I'm no one special in that sort of arena, and it's just about talking about it. I talk about it at work. I work for a large corporation. Everyone knows I do it. People ask about it all the time, and it's not taboo, and I don't let it be. I don't think we need to be scared about it. You don't need to hide it. It's completely legal. As long as you've, probably hard to go into work as hard, blazed away on, 1,200 pigs on the weekend, left them in the paddock. That's a different conversation to, I drove 8 hours and I walked everywhere and I, shot our deer and I brought it back and I feed my family with it. That's a pretty wholesome story. Food is a good enabler for conversation.
And I think the other thing is too, is if you really want something to survive and flourish, it's got to be part of your voting patterns too. You've got to say, okay, I've got to actually think about this from. I mean, I think about hunting when I vote. because it's that important to them. So I've got to think about, and I might not have options, or my options might be very limited, but I've got to actually think about that from a voting point of view, because ultimately it will, the challenge it will face will be political. So I've got to think politically. I've got to think, okay, I've got to protect what I want here, and, to Ian's point, I do think you can have the conversation with other people. You just got to have it in the right way. I wrote an article a couple of months ago, like one of the dads at school said, "Hey, you're that guy from the SSAA magazine," and yeah, he's a hunter. I was on Target and getting my favourite gun shop, and the girl who serves me coffee at the local, she's at the gun shop with her dad and brother because they hunt on a private property. So it's actually quite amazing how many people you come across who do it, but we generally tend not to talk too much about it because of the connotations of it. But I think having the conversation is good. My boy did a presentation last week, and the last slide was why hunting is good. He's 10 years old.
Yeah, my boy's taken some of my deer skulls.
Yeah, well, he did. He took the feral pig skull.
Yeah.
So he did things about feral pigs, and I kind of called up Nettie Macon's site, and kind of nudged him, have a look over here, and some of the information. And the last slide was why hunting is good, and I thought, and he was, and that was well received at school and stuff like that. And I mean,
my son's taken a fellow caller, a grunter, and rattling antlers in. It's his show and tell. Tells the class how Daddy smacks them together to bring the real bucks in to get shot. I think it's brilliant. I love it. I don't think we should shy away from it. I don't think it has to be gory. It doesn't have to be, you've got to appeal to the people you're talking to, but nothing wrong with it. The amount of people, we show some of the videos of the trips that we've done, when you run over to New Zealand and hop in a chopper and subsistence, live almost on your way out, shoot a deer, catch some trout, you survive on what it is you do. You're not out there to shoot everything that moves. You might only shoot one or two animals while you're there. But the corporate people that are like, man, how do I get a piece of that? How much is that going to cost me to come on that trip? And, I'm not really hunting. I'm just eating food, and catching a trout. And they they look at those two things as the same. We need food for camp. So we're going to go and get it. That's what this trip is all about. And they love it. Just absolutely want to be part of it. And they're not hunters. But all of a sudden you've captured their imagination about adventure and all of the fun and camaraderie. Hunt camp's the same. People show up to that thing because they just want to be amongst people that, are real, and they're in the bush and they're having a good time, whether they want to participate in the hunting or not. So have a chat.
Well, at Nundle last trip we took, good mate Graham came with us. He's a non-hunter. He just, I said, mate, you just want to come to camp? And he said, yeah, I do. So that was it. It was about him coming in, being part of that camp. He was with us, the 5 days. He went out every time we went out. He walked, did the Ks, spent money on hunting clothes. He loved it, and it was but he's a non-hunter. Darcy's bending his ear about, oh, you need this, you need that, and they're talking about rifles and stuff like that. But he was a non-hunter, and I think I think that's really important part to it too, because there's always going to be people who are going to hate you. And you can't do anything about those people. They just hate you. You got all the people who are on your team that you all wear the same uniform. There's a great many people in the middle that, and you've got to influence. And again, quoting Ned Macon, he describes it have social license. If those people think what you do is reasonable, then you've got political power. If they think what you do is unreasonable, then you don't have political power. So influencing people in a wider audience is really important, and it's influencing them in a positive way about what you do. They might not want to participate, but they then think, okay, what you do is reasonable, if not interesting, if not maybe something even more again.
The dialogue around cancel culture works well as well. There are maybe people that don't want anything to do with hunting, but they're absolutely sick of all of these things being cancelled by someone because they're offended. And when that conversation happens and you bring hunting into that discussion about another part of that, all of a sudden you're an ally, because the conversation's about, cancel culture. It's not about hunting itself. You're just part of that problem, or you're part of the affected or impacted. I think that's quite a good way to do it.
I think you mentioned there, Mark, about like the advocacy side of it, and I think that's been probably an area that's grown so much with like all the new podcasts. There's been two new ones coming out in the last, I think, week, which or announced. That's fantastic. You know, the more content out there that's out there in a positive manner is a win. And
100% agree.
Because I said it to Lawson White. I had him on mine and said, hey, I've got no issue with other podcasters coming on mine, because if they like you better than me and they're listening and you get someone involved, that's a win. That's you're not my enemy. You're on my team, as you just said. That's a win, because there's going to be people that don't like the sound of me or what I talk about, and vice versa. As long as they're listening to someone and all this content, all these different people and pushing things out, it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And I think tech is something that's great for that. And, it's been really good to see that grow as well, because I remember listening to Australian hunting podcast. That was sort of the only one that was sort of in Australia for a while, or the only one that I knew about anyway. And that was it. So when you look now, geez, it's great.
I think episode 216 is the best one.
Are we on there, where?
Yeah, that's me.
I haven't heard that one. I might have to go back.
I think it's 216. I made that number up. But it's a long way. I was on a long time ago. But look, about that point, about, podcasts and stuff like, and, content, it used to be called the food court mentality, where, the more you get types of food in one location, the better everyone does. It's not competition. It's just like, so then people can go, oh, we can all go here because I can get this and you can get that and you can get this and we can get that. If you're trying to be the one big shop in town, then, you're working on a competition model. So I'm always keen to see new podcasts or new content and things like that, because the new model is the food truck model, or the food street model. But the more that there's variety, but basically it's all pushing in the same direction, the more people you attract, because someone will go, look, I don't like that one, but I really like these guys, or vice versa.
Yeah, that positive message, as it's. I think there was a stat out there saying that most people that listen to podcasts, they listen to about 8 a week. If they're listening to 8 different hunting podcasts, that's a win.
Yeah. Or they're listening to, and I think the interesting thing about podcasts is you hear other people. And I mean, that's why, you with a podcast, you can introduce people to other podcasts.
Yeah.
It goes exponentially.
You can kind of say, oh, well, okay, well, look, I heard that guy, I like him, I'll go looking for his podcast now. Just things like that. So I think that's also a really positive part of it. So for me, the more people talking about it, the more people having a positive message, and also their own messages. I think that there's a hell of a lot of room for different approaches. And I think one of the problems that we suffer from is that we get this. This is the only way of doing something. That's just crazy to me.
Well, look, I love my tech, and I listened to your one I think it was last week when we're recording this, is for the Zolio. Now I'm super keen. I'll be honest, I never heard of it.
Affiliate link.
Yeah, right.
I will. No, more than happy to.
Do it through Amazon, mate.
I was on one of the Facebook groups. So I mentioned someone, they asked about the GPS or PLBs or whatever. And I said, listen, I just heard this on your podcast. Jump over, have a listen. It's their latest one on the Zolio. It sounds fantastic. I don't know that much about it, but now my ears are perked up. And when I hear about new tech, I like to research my little backside off, because I love learning about it. It sounded awesome. I'm super keen now to just unpack it.
Been away.
How are we showing
saying that, Matt? When you started talking about electronic earbuds, I'm like, ooh, where do I get those from? Because I've been looking at the electronic buds that you're lost in the bush.
Axel GS Extremes.
Yeah.
Man, they're so good. I'm so glad I found them. They've actually got a new set now that it's
what are they?
They're like the Sens digital ones, the ones that actually mold and then amplify your hearing and things like that. And then they just cut it out at 85. These ones are the same, but they work on like a little compression bud. And now they're $120 US.
Oh, so they're just
so it's still your compressed, but mate, they are.
Because I've got
I took them to the range the other day.
Standard electronic earmuffs, so that cut out the sound or actually amplify the sound.
Well, they do the same, but these are just tiny things that hook in, and they just got a little lanyard that goes that you turn on and off and change your volume. I took them to the range the other day and just went, oh, what have I been doing with the earmuffs? So good. And now they've got a new set that doesn't even have the lanyard. You just literally, it's like the thing.
Yeah,
that's what I use them for. Brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I used to say,
I'm always worried about my hearing.
Well, I always have been worried about my hearing, but my hearing's fine. I don't have a problem with it. And for the few, like I'd go on maybe 8 or 10 hunts a year, and I might shoot an animal. One round going off once a month, it's not really going to kill my hearing. I don't think, but I'm no doctor. No. But now we're doing a lot more. Like we're doing a lot more hunting. We're purposefully doing a lot more hunting, and we've been given a whole bunch of reasons to go and do a lot more hunting. I'm letting more rounds off. I'm sighting in more rifles. We're playing with more ammo. We're doing stuff. Now I'm shooting more. I want those. I want the buds, but I'm always in the moment. It used to be I'm always in the moment. I never get to push the button on the camera. Yeah. Now I've got my brain wired to be camera first, rifle second. I've got to start to protect hearing. I'm also thinking about the same thing for the dog. I'm trying to figure out how to get that. There's a thing called mutt muffs that go on your dog to protect its hearing, because I don't really want to blow eardrums out either. Most dog handlers say, it's not a problem, don't worry about it. But I don't believe that for a second. Their hearing's pretty sensitive. So anyway, they're the things. I love the tech. It's good. Get the Zolio. It's worth it.
That is awesome.
I definitely, I'm very keen. I'm just about to dip my foot into thermal, so that's something I'm super excited about.
Yeah,
grab a little thermal monocular, and I heard all the infrared. I think infrared was with your Campfire. I'm spewing. I didn't get to that one to have a play with those things.
Yeah, pretty special. Yeah, we've got a few different ones.
Barris is good.
I just got sent the Zeiss by OSA. Is it OSA? To review.
OSA.
And this one's really interesting because it's actually got interchangeable lenses. I've never seen this before. So it's a different lens. So it's kind of like a spotting scope in that sense.
I want the infrared snap-on.
I'm really interested in how that goes.
Snap-on, not strap-on. Snap-on.
You'll get banned again on YouTube. Things like that.
Go again.
And the other weird thing about the Zeiss... The other weird thing about the Zeiss is it uses an external rechargeable battery. So
the Burris that I've got there has got external rechargeable battery.
Yeah, the monocular doesn't. It's an internal.
Yeah, that one's good.
So you can get two batteries and get a heap of battery life. So yeah.
What are you looking at, Matt? Are you looking at monocular? Are you looking at like a handheld, or are you looking at
monocular?
Yeah,
monocular, just a handheld. I've always wanted to start out, and a lot of the people I've been speaking to that have been playing with them said don't get it on a scope, because then you always have to lift your rifle up and blah blah blah. And I was like, well, that makes sense. Spotting, using it as a spotter would be good. And look, that is with my sort of hopefully I'll get a bit more private access coming down the track, and having that would be really nice to play with. But even in a state forest now that it's
great
legal, that was sort of the that was the thing. I'd never bought one. I'd always wanted to get one, but having no private access and not being able to use them in state forest, it was like, it's a lot of money to not use and to sit there. And then as soon as that state forest sort of came about, I went, I do like the idea of that. It might help me get my first deer, who knows? So, and I'm not opposed to tech. So that's one of my, one of the things I am really passionate about in the hunting sort of thing. I love just finding new gear and wasting my money. My wife absolutely loves it.
Yeah, I bet she does. Well, you've brought it up. I was going to bring it up. I want to talk about the deer journey, not to give you a ribbing. It's an open conversation. You've been working really hard to take your first deer on state forest or on public land. Now you've picked up a bow, right? Just to make it like,
yes,
make it even harder.
One hard for you before.
Yeah, look at me.
Yeah.
What's the
next
plan?
week? I'm buying myself a pointy stick.
I'm going full traditional. Get the boomerang out.
What's the plan? How are you going to get this, or are you going to hold out for hunt camp and come and we'll?
No, look, it was Look, I guess it was just a circumstance. I'd started in the state forest, and geez, I've had just that run in. The bushfires hit. I just started to feel like I was getting traction. I was seeing deer, and the bushfires hit, wiped out all my spots down the snowies. And then that moved into COVID, not being able to travel and whatnot. And then we started a family, and my wife and I live down here. There's no family support or anything like that. So I decided when we were having twins, I was going to be home for 12 weeks to support and help with her. And it was, I'll grab a bow and I'll be able to shoot every day. Twins will be okay. It's only, double the nappies. It was definitely not like that. I don't think I slept for the first 3 months. It was a crazy time. So I sort of went, well, I'm limited in how far I can go or the time I can get away. And that was almost why one of the reasons the podcast came about, to be honest, because the first one anyway was I'm not going to be able to go away as much. I'm going to talk about it more because I love talking about it and just, meeting people and having those conversations. And then I went, well, the closest state forest for me is Belanglo. It's 50 odd minutes compared to, 3 hours. It's a lot more achievable. And I thought, well, you know what? A lot of it, I like going out just to be in the bush. And it's not, I might sound a bit crazy here, but I don't lay there at night going, I haven't got a deer, geez, I'm a failure. I come back from a hunt going, geez, I learnt something or I had fun. And that's one of the reasons I got into hunting. I've played in multiple World Cups, went over to New Zealand for one of them, and I've always been that competitive sports person. And that's what I love about the hunting side of it, because I have so much to learn and there's so many challenges. And it's probably why I make it a bit harder on myself. Like, I've never got a mentor. I haven't really, struck a chord with too many people in hunting clubs and things like that. So I've been going out on my own and just learning and doing the best I can. And it's a journey. It's taken a while. The bow is more just to get out more because it's more achievable. I am under no illusions that it's going to be, it's not going to be an absolute hard slog. But you know what? To be honest, at Belanglo, I've seen the most deer I've ever seen in a state forest on that last trip, with 8 of them, coming past, and they're at 70 meters. And I was just in the wrong spot. I was on the wrong trail, just waiting to ambush them. So, look, that happens. It's part of the journey. And just even seeing them and getting excited that I was so close to my strategy working this time, and unpacking that and talking to people about it, and that's a win for me. And a new skill. The bow's been great. I love shooting it, and I can at home comfortably I've just made a little thing so I can shoot out to a backstop, so I can shoot out to 50 meters comfortably, and that just a bit easier than getting to the range all the time. And that's the journey. But look, it's still going. It's I'm excited to get one, but I don't want to rush it or end it easier. So it could be up there with you guys next March or April. So
you never know.
You haven't got a deer, or you haven't got a deer on public land?
No, I haven't got a deer at all. So I've been shooting for I got my license back around 2005, and it was just target shooting. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I was in the army for a bit, and that sort of got me into shooting and just love shooting. So that's where it came, and sort of had a couple of mates take us here and there. So we're knocking bunnies and rabbits off, bunnies and foxes and things like that. But I really didn't even know about deer hunting till about 2016, maybe 2016. And that was when I don't have friends that hunt. I don't have family. I'm one of those people that just sort of went, there's state forest. Oh, okay, this is interesting. I just started searching and learning and going, okay, this is great. So, and then basically went out on my own every single time and just started to learn and find and go through that with the help of some podcasts and watching things on YouTube. And that's sort of been the journey so far. So yeah, I haven't got a deer. It's been a challenge.
Social media is going to go spastic with that day. The day that you post it up.
Well, I don't think it will. My social media is very low. So I don't.
You got some good listeners. I'm sure you'll get all the encouragement in the world.
I'm sure Frank will be all over
Frank will
that.
go mad.
Oh, he's such a good
Frank will
guy,
go
Frank.
nuts.
He's an
I hope
awesome
he's
guy.
there when I get it, to be honest, because he's such a good bloke. But look, that's one of those things. It's exciting for me to go out, and even if it's to get closer, and that seems to be what's happening each time. And it's never been. Trophy hunting. Get why people do it. For me, that has not been the reason I've got into it. That's just not why. That could change. I have no idea. But
it'll change when that first
I-
buck
I
Wait till you
don't
get that
think
first
croak, croak, croak. You'll be hooked.
Well, I had that last time, and that was amazing. But see, that's that to me now. Oh, it's funny. The next one now is like I just want to hear reds roaring. I haven't even I sort of went, I want to hear that because I was able to hear fallow for the first time this rut. The next one's that, which is funny because I sort of sit there and sometimes and go, well, yeah, why isn't it go back and get a fallow buck in the rut? So I'm a bit unique sometimes the way I sort of think or approach things. But that's I don't know. I wouldn't change a thing, to be honest. I sit there and go, I've thoroughly enjoyed what it is. I do enjoy the hard slog and the challenge, and I have been enjoying the public land aspect of it, and that I do like that frustration of getting close but no cigar to drive me, and I need that, and that's why hunting's just the perfect thing because you can do it forever. It's not like playing rugby league where you've got a shelf life, and it's the beauty about it too for me. It's getting into places that maybe no one's ever been and finding something new and along the way, and if hopefully harvesting an animal for that meat, and that's the driving factor as well. So it's just so many elements to it that I just love.
Awesome.
Everyone's gone very reflective, mate.
Yeah.
We all know what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all know
It'll
exactly
lock
what
in
you're
for
talking
you.
about.
You'll get one, and then you'll go, and then you'll start seeing more, and it'll just become a habit. You'll figure out where they are and what time of day and what the wind's like and what face, and you're like, that'll make sense. Yeah, righto, cool. And you'll just start walking on them.
I think that's the I think the one of the main reasons I want to get one is to stop the wife hassling me so much. She does fantastic with the veggies and the chicken, and all I ever hear, and Frank loves it because he's always adding fuel to the fire. Thanks, Frank. I know you'll be listening. But the wife comes home and just you still haven't got one, eh? Like you've just gone away for a couple of days.
I get that too.
Where's the meat, mate? I've just let you out of the house, and I've kept the 3 little ones, and you can't even sort it out. Get better.
I get that too, buddy.
You're gonna eat venison,
mate? Yeah, 100%. She's key. We've been lucky enough. A few people have given us some and whatnot. So mate, she's a great cook, and she loves cooking it. So it's a real win there, and it's mate. Yeah, she's just all about getting it and saying, hey, that's probably why I get the leeway and get out there to try and get some. But
awesome.
I'm lucky in that sense. So it's been pretty good because, especially with the little ones, it's been another element to the journey that I probably didn't expect and didn't think would impact it so much. But, we were very big into camping, and that was sort of, we would go away camping, and then the little ones came along, and it's like, oh, geez, there's so many more elements to it now. I can't just get away for longer periods of time. And it's, and not complaining. I love the kids and whatnot, but it's just that extra little element to it that makes it a bit harder. Yeah, and I think that's made it better in one way, because now I cherish that time out in the bush a lot more, because I know there's not going to be a heap of it. And whatever time I get out there, make the most of it and really just enjoy it, which, it's like a reset for me. I absolutely love it. I'm keen to get up to Nundle, though. I keep hearing everybody talk about it.
Yeah, look, Nundle is really good. I mean, but in reality, you're actually in probably the better deer country in terms of percentage. Yeah, but I mean, Nundle is very. But look, the thing about Nundle is the Nundle camp is probably is fantastic. And if you're hunting by yourself, then you'll really get something out of deer camp, because you'll have 24 other people to talk to who strange enough, talk exactly like you do. And so that's
they're all on their journey.
Yeah,
there's
it.
a lot of
You're
silent hunters. There's bow hunters that come. They're the first ones up. They're the last ones back. They're quite quiet. They come back into camp. They might share in the meal, and then they'll be preparing for the next day and thinking about what they're doing. It's not a big Yahoo. It's certainly a very focused group of fellas that come in that have they were here last year. They've got their spots. They're going back to those spots. They know what to expect. They've learnt from last time. Guys that have come back a couple of different times. First time they came, they started to piece the puzzle together. They saw the animals, but they didn't quite take one. Second time, they picked up exactly where they left off, got their first deer, were able to celebrate it with a whole bunch of fellas, which was just tremendous. It was so good for these guys. And myself, I managed to take a couple. I'm always happy to take deer in state forest. And you can use the animal to teach, and show people the next steps, even if they don't get to take one themselves, right? So they all get to participate.
And look, that learning aspect is just what really just excites me as well. Like I went and did the kangaroo harvesters course at TAFE just to get better at knowing butchery and safe meat handling practices and things like that. I'll probably never do it professionally, but it was just an opportunity to learn more, and it's so good.
I remember you talking about this on a recent podcast, and I'm like, man, you think about it. You guys think about this stuff a lot, like safe meat handling and temperatures and how like all I could think of was how do I interject and add here while I'm listening to your podcast again? Not because I know better. In fact, you're probably doing a lot better with your meat than I do, because I don't think about it that hard. We were over in New Zealand. We shot these red stags. We've taken a whole bunch of meat off them. We're there for 10 days. Excuse me. We're in one of these hot tents, right? So it's -3 or 4 outside. It's snowing, sleeting, fucking freezing. And we go into the hot tents, 30 degrees. Everyone's stripped down to their bloody stubbies and singlets, sitting around, 10 of us in this tent for, the 4-man tent with a stove in the middle. On the stove was a hot pot, and that hot pot was always on the not a boil, but a slow simmer. It's full of pasta and rice and sauce and onions and mushrooms, backstrap, bit of rump, bit of this. And once we'd carved enough off it to put it in the pot, it got hung up in the tent. On the rails in the tent. It's 30 degrees. And then that 30 degrees would plummet to -4, and then the day would heat up, 15 degrees, whatever. We'd all get back in there. It'd be 30 degrees again that night. Slice some more off. No worries. Nothing wrong with it. This thing was going up and down and up and down and up and down. And in the end, we still had another whole backstrap. One of the guys said, I'm staying. I'm going to Queenstown. Put in a plastic bag, threw it in his pack. 3 days later, he got to Queenstown, served it up to all of his friends in the little chalet that they were in. Sweet as, no problem. Like, it's meat. It's just red meat. It's fine. It's okay. And yet I was listening to your podcast.
Have you ever had food poisoning?
No. And I've eaten a lot of harvested meat that I don't really treat as well. I'll throw it in sloppy, icy water. No worries. I might put it in a bag first, but it's still going in there. Yeah. I just, if it was chicken, different. I don't eat wild pork, but red meat, controlled rot, which is all good. Trust me, mate.
I've had food poisoning too many times. I'll err on the side of caution.
I don't go out of my way to mistreat it, but at Nundle, you could shoot an animal and hang it in the tree for 3 days before you butcher it.
Oh, it's cold enough.
It's in the shade. It's cooler. Yeah. It's cool. It's not cold. It's cool. Warms up. I've never really found it's a major problem. I'm sure other people have.
Like you, Matt, I've done some safe meat handling courses and that, so I'm quite particular about how I handle the meat and temperature and that.
Well, and those backstraps up in the territory, man, they were in the ice with the beers.
Well, we didn't end up eating those because they went a bit rank. They were a bit smelly.
That was an extreme situation in terms of the heat. That's a
It was a good
territory is a
listen.
different story.
yeah.
It was a good listen. Anyway, you can do fireworks.
I'd have to say I'm somewhere between you. Somewhere in between the lot of you. So I'm not like letting this thing sit in 30-degree heat, but I'll probably
Cook it in a tent.
That's right. Yeah, as I said, it's 10 in the 10. Only 8 of us made it back out.
It was tender, beautiful.
But I don't know. Yeah, but
it's all the bacteria that's deteriorated the meat.
Yeah,
Controlled rot. That's what they call it.
But I think a big part of it is, that just you just refine these things. You start to build your own approach to these things, and you start to work out. And I mean, I'm always experimenting. Always thinking. I'll see something. I'll go. I'll see if that works. There's 80% of the stuff I've bought for hunting, I've turned over. It hasn't worked. I've tried it. I don't know how many rifles. I was having a conversation with someone about rifle slings. I don't know how many rifle slings I've ended up. I didn't end up got one. Put that over my shoulder.
On a trip down in Victoria for Samba, and we there was a couple there that were very good with their older skills, and they went up and shot a couple of Samba, broke them down, and threw them in brine barrels. I thought that was interesting. So they made the brine up in camp. Lots of salt, lots of this, lots of that, cloves, something went in it, and they stuffed all the meat into brine barrels. No refrigeration required. Unreal. Such a good way to do it.
I love like the bushcraft sort of stuff, and you're probably right when you start talking about that you can treat it pretty badly and still be fine. Because you sort of, I read about how people did keep meat previously and all the different styles, and nothing obviously happened to them. But it's it's an interesting one.
They died when they were 30, but
well, that maybe
never recovered.
We just lost grandma through the vapors or something like that. Or it was his time at 25. Yeah.
Maybe there's something to do with that, but it's I think that's one of the things I really enjoy too, is finding gear and rotating through gear and just upgrading or getting something new that sounded great, and then you go, it's not that great, and then get rid of it and bring something new in, and that it's all part of the puzzle. It's so much fun to be involved with it, and I'm about to pursue reloading, and it's just I keep finding all these new little
rabbit hole
avenues and rabbit holes, and I'm just super excited.
Stick to the bow, Matt. Stick to the bow.
Rabbit hole.
Yeah,
that's right. Remember, your crony for the bow won't work for your rifle too. So you'll need 2 of those. You'll need 2 of those. That's a rabbit hole.
Too much time on your hands. Reload.
I don't, but I try to make things. That's more and more. Yeah, it's good fun.
No. That I know that journey very well.
Done it myself.
I'm still on it. So I've got into Kuyu clothing this year, and you look at those prices and you go, yeah, some people think I'm rich. I'm just irresponsible. So that's it, yeah. And I've always, as the guys will tell you, I have a particular bent for knives and torches.
And old things.
I've seen a few of your torch posts.
Yeah.
Didn't you get a new one lately?
I haven't got a new one lately.
I got a new knife lately.
Was it knife?
Yeah, knives.
My new favourite.
Ian's got a couple. I have a new torch lately. I got a few knives.
I got one of those.
I've moved the collection to Benchmade knives.
This thing was
awesome.
It's an army.
That's a little pack.
That's completely transparent. Right, so you turn it on and it glows out the back as well as the front. But it just clips onto your cap. I just clip it onto my bino rig, and it just completely lights up in front of you.
Yep.
When you're walking at night, you do a lot of night hunting, or not night hunting, but walking out at night, you feel more uncoordinated, and that's because you've only got one light. Most people only carry one light, and that one light gives you very bad tunnel vision.
Yep.
A guide in New Zealand once said, if you have 2 lights, you'll feel like you're walking in the daylight. because you've got one that gives you broad view and you've got one that follows your vision, and your coordination's 10 times better. And I was walking out the other day, actually the other torch of mine went flat, and all I had was this little thing I'd never used before. I stuck it on the bino rig and wandered out for a little while, and it was just unreal.
And it was bright as we saw you coming from
$40 or something.
Hundreds of meters.
Yeah. So
look, I think that's one of the best things about podcasts is I've picked up so many different things from so many different podcasts that you find out something like, now I'll be straight onto that. All right, let me have a look at that. Let me spend the money on that and get something new to test it out. And it's to the point, anytime the wife gets in the car and there's a hunting podcast on, she's getting nervous. And she's grabbing the phone, taking away. No online shopping, mate.
That's it.
Yeah.
Cuts it.
I get
She
it.
gives me a time limit in the gun shop. I walk in and she goes, "That's it. You got 5 minutes. Hurry up."
Oh,
There's a
how
reason.
much you spend in 5 minutes, though?
A lot.
Yeah.
And you get in a lot of trouble.
Especially with a bit of pre-work, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, all good. All right, boys.
I was super interested. I was super interested to hear you boys all talking about the tickers being away and upgrading, not using them as much anymore. It was in, I think, I think it was the Zolio, wasn't it? The episode you were. I love the ticker.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
now I'm sitting there going, maybe I need to have a look at expanding my my view.
Yeah.
Because
you need more than one rifle. Yeah.
Oh, I've got plenty of them. But I was actually thinking of making them all ticker, and now I'm going, well, you guys are you're not even grabbing them at the moment. That's you perked my curiosity.
The custom build I built with Beretta is started off as a ticker, so it is technically a ticker. It's a CDR, and the thing is, I don't own any standard rifles. That's what so all my stuff is modified or customized in some way. So my oldest rifle is a Tikka, and it is fully customized, custom fitted stock and all that stuff, but it's still a Tikka. But there's some other really interesting, there's a lot of nice stuff in there. I mean, Ian and I are running the BRX, which is just a wholly different type of rifle, and then Ian and John have got the Lupos, the Benellis, and they're ridiculously nice when you see them in the box. Holy smokes! Because they're a fantastic combination of like new styling, but with really nice componentry and timber work and stuff.
It's so
Jono's
smooth.
Benelli is just lovely.
Oh, that's
beautiful. So you just look at it, holy smokes, and it's the whatever they call it. It's not Cerakoting. It's what do they call it?
Best
coating.
Best.
They've got this armor on it type thing, and so it's pretty spectacular.
Look, I'll always have a Tikka in the same. I love my Tikka. I love the action. I think they're great rifles, but there's certainly some good options out there at the moment.
Yeah.
The BRX, beautiful rifle, but I've got the Timber Benelli, and it is stunning. It is a beautiful rifle.
I mean, I was talking to Rigby on Monday night. That stuff. Their side locks start at £150,000, and their the new one, their cheaper one, starts at £35,000.
Tune into our next time.
That's right. I do not believe I'll pull that off.
Yeah. That's a bit of a laugh.
So so you just kind of go, holy. And I mean, I was in England shooting with John McGee and Steve Kelly, and Jonathan at the time was doing the socials for Longthorn shotgun. So he said, "Hey, look, you can borrow this Longthorn for the day," and that was about £25,000, and it's right-handed, and it belted the hell out of me. But I said, well, this is the best beat up, most expensive beating up I'm going to get, so I'm going to take it. So I shot all day. It was just fantastic. And then even with Steve gave us the new, at the time, the new yielded shotguns, and they were the grade 5 ones. And, even though they're Turkish made, but they were grade 5 shotguns, and they were just beautiful things to shoot. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to play with.
Yeah.
Never ending.
My Tikka's sitting up.
Got to win the lotto.
I sold quite a bit of my gear so that I could build a new hunting rifle that I wanted. Well, not customized, but get the scope in the rifle that I wanted, and it was the Tika, and it's done a little bit of work, but full disclaimer, we've got some very good support out of Beretta Australia, and they are nice enough to be able to say, well, what are you doing? What type of hunting are you doing? And what's going to support that? And we're able to have a look at the various different products and pick a couple of things that are going to work. We go to the territory, what's it going to be? It's this caliber and it's this type of rifle for fast shooting and this type of scope. They support us with that, and it's great. We've sort of landed on a few things that we're finding really, really good. And unfortunately, that leaves the Tika on the shelf.
Don't want to get back. Don't want to get back. Yeah, man.
I don't want this to sound arrogant at all. I hadn't even looked at the price of the Lupos. I just, we were talking about them and we got them, we were using them, setting them up. Man, it was nice. Absolutely beautiful to look at, to feel, to use. It was only after I'd taken it out for its first round of scratches that I looked at the price tag and realised that it was a couple of levels above where I was already. But you can see the difference. If you've got the budget to afford something like a Lupo, it's a beautiful piece of kit.
Yeah, I mean that's Seiko 85 that they gave me to carry up in the territory. That was a fantastic rifle. I mean, it's just typical quality Seiko build, lovely bit of timber. It's very straight, was very traditional, but fantastic. It was a fantastic rifle. And when it ended up getting sold, went back and they sold it, and when they sold it, they showed the video of me hunting with it, and the guy went, "Oh, okay, sure, I'll take that." That was it. That's the rifle there. Bang, sold it. So it was a fantastic, and so there's a lot to experience, and so Tika are lovely rifles, but there's plenty of options out there.
And to appeal to you, Matt, the BRX, if you've not looked at it, I'm sure you probably have, but interchangeable barrels, completely customizable, left to right hand. You can, configure your trigger weights, all that sort of stuff, but the barreling, being able to go up, we've got a territory trip plan in the planning for next year. Being able to go up there with a 3006, target the donkeys and the pigs, go back into camp, put the 9.3 on, go chase buffalo. You change the barrel and the bolt face, and off you go again. It's all completely doable in the field. I think that's a really cool platform. Straight pull it's a pleasure to use, isn't it? I wasn't sure. I hadn't seen it. The first time I saw it was when it got delivered and we picked it up and started to play with it when it's brand new into the country. I'm a convert for sure. It's performed really well in the dust and the wet and the everything. It hasn't missed a beat. Whereas some of the straight pulls and some of the other brands have been a bit, how's it going? This one, as you can expect, made by Beretta, pretty damn good. So that's worth a look.
The interchangeable the interchangeable barrels is just so exciting.
Yeah,
that's been something that's super. Like I've been sort of paying close attention, looking at the Seikos, and I know Hardy do them and things like that, and watching that space. Jeez, it's good.
Yeah. So I've got the BRX, the Minecraft one, as we call it. That I carried last week was the first time I actually carried in the field, and so I carried it. Didn't get to use it because basically I was checking trail cameras. But that'll be what I'll be carrying for the rest of the year, and I'm running a red dot on it. So which is again, changing up, being just trying some. And Beretta actually, Scott from Beretta actually challenged me. He said, "I want you to try it." And I went, and he said, "Okay." And I said, "Well, I'll put a scope on it." And I want you to try red dots. So I said, "Okay, I'll give it a go." So I'm actually learning a different way of shooting, and we're actually hopefully to get Carl from Aim Point in Sweden on one of the podcasts, who we met at a training night to talk a little bit about it, because he's hunted around the world with them. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
it is. Get him to hunt camp. Great.
Yeah, I've actually got a text message back from him, so it's we're moving. We're moving that right direction.
Well, good luck with your choices. You've got a lot to think about if you're looking at your next rifle and all the information that's out there now to peruse. So yeah.
All I know is when it comes to your next rifle, the answer is always yes.
Send that email that came in today.
Yeah.
That's right.
Try them all.
That's right. Should I get a new rifle? Don't ask silly questions. Just ask what kind. It's just about what kind. The answer is yes. It's just what kind. That's just we'll work that part out later. But the answer is always yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I think we're about done, guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks for being on the podcast this evening. Really enjoyed it. It was a good chat. Yeah, thanks, gents. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
stuff,
I don't know what's up with your mic. It keeps fighting in. But yeah, mate, thank you very much for coming on. It's been it's funny. It's completely different structure. So it's been an exploratory podcast for us as much as anything. So appreciate your time, buddy.
No, thanks for having us, boys. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and keep doing what you're doing. It's great stuff.
Thanks, man.
Okay.
Good on you, man.
Thanks, mate.
Okay, guys.